Top Gun, 1986 movie starring Tom Cruise and Val Kilmer. Tom Cruise plays a fighter pilot call sign Maverick, who is known for his lack of respect for authority and his reckless style of flying that often puts himself and his colleagues in danger. And he gets reluctantly invited to an elite school for fighter pilots where he is to undertake a training for several weeks, and at the end the best of the pilots from that class gets the title of Top Gun. And as he's in the school, he develops a rivalry with Iceman, played by Val Kilmer, who is Maverick's polar opposite. Always by the book, always by the rules, always playing safe and avoiding mistakes at any cost. And also Maverick begins a romance with a female instructor. Now, I've never actually seen Top Gun before, but of course I was aware of the movie's existence. It's difficult not to for several reasons. One, it's considered by many people to be a 1980s classic, with young Tom Cruise as the lead and very popular soundtrack, Take My Breath Away being the most known example. Number two, it has left a permanent mark on the popular culture, I think. It was referenced in other movies and other pieces of media, most recently Captain Marvel in a large way. Some of the jargon and terminology used by the pilots in the movie has even made its way into the common language, most notably the term wingman. Now, that term is interesting because it's quite commonly used as the guy who will go with you to pick up women and help you score, whether by distracting her friends or by participating in elaborate pickup techniques. And the origin of the word, as shown in the film, traces back to describing the pilot right next to you on your right wing as you're flying. And although the movie also shows the pilots hitting on girls at bars together as well. And finally, reason number three, it's because it's notoriously been one of the most, if not the single most successful US military commercials. The US Navy has publicly come out and said that the number of people who joined to become a pilot went up by 500% after the movie's release. You can see the military's involvement in the film. There are many scenes of real fighter jets in action, as well as an aircraft carrier. It's a fun little bit of trivia, by the way, that the Navy, seeing the potential of the film as a recruitment tool, rightfully so, was extremely cooperative and made no problems with allowing the crew to shoot and even rent the aircraft for sequences which had to be shot outside of their normal operating hours. And that has since become a pretty standard practice in movie making. Pentagon is quite open to renting or even borrowing military equipment for free, as well as locations for movies, so long as they can review the script first and make sure that the US military is shown in a pretty positive light. It's portrayed favorably. And in certain cases, it's even possible to get funding from the US military. The most notorious example here is the Transformers series. Now, Top Gun. Top Gun can definitely be called an army commercial. The way the military life is portrayed here, flying cool fighter jets, riding fast motorcycles, chilling out with your comrades at bars or at base, hooking up with beautiful women, it all looks like a completely made-up fantasy. And in fact, I even go a bit further than that. As I was watching the film, knowing the cultural context of the army stuff, but also the relevance of the mentioned term wingman, at times I just couldn't help myself laughing at certain moments, because I was thinking all those times about the Me Too movement that is really popular right now, promoting female presence in media, and actually even more so the counter movement that seems to be really present on the internet these days, where there are a lot of people saying that this female presence in media is always forced and nonsensical, and we should all just collectively stop doing that. See, this counter movement will often pick a movie with a female lead to try and dismantle and nitpick all of its flaws, undermine the feasibility of strong female characters, criticizing those stories for being nothing more but unrealistic fantasies where a woman can magically achieve everything through the power of being woman. And that to me is quite ironic, because I imagine a lot of those people are the same ones who either consider Top Gun a classic film or even have just been influenced by it, culturally speaking. And that irony is because Top Gun itself is laughably guilty of all those things. It's a bland, masculine fantasy where a charismatic and slightly flawed protagonist has a cool job or mission in front of him, and he overcomes almost all the obstacles he faces, and he doesn't even really suffer the consequences of his flaws, not directly. And also, obviously, he gets a beautiful girl in the process. I mean, if you just cut some of the flying scenes, the movie would literally become a romantic comedy with military elements. And I'm not joking here, it has so many of the cliches of that genre that at times it just hurts to watch. And it was honestly quite shocking to me to see that the romantic subplot was so heavily featured on screen, while at the same time being really shallow. There isn't too much depth to it. And then there are the already mentioned flight sequences, which must have looked pretty cool those 30-something years ago, but they have aged quite a lot. And I think that after being spoiled, especially by Dunkirk, in that regard, I would find it really difficult to honestly praise them in this day and age. All of that said, the movie isn't bad at all. I mean, Tom Cruise is still quite charismatic on the screen, despite the fact that it's, I think, one of his least interesting roles. He's got good chemistry with Kelly McGillis and Val Kilmer, and some of the cinematography looks really, really great. There are shots of landings and takeoffs at sunset. Gorgeous stuff. But I just think that at the end of the day, it's a pretty average film overall. There's nothing too exciting about it, not too much tension, and when you watch it with a more critical eye, considering what I've just complained about, then it's pretty clear that it's just a pretty shallow film. Apparently a good and successful army commercial, if you're not too intelligent, I guess, but not much more.